Are you experiencing panic attack and anxiety and are in search of answers or help on how to deal with it? Let's watch this episode together so that we can both manage and be able to learn the technique on how to put ourselves in control. All right, so everyone, you know me as the person behind Bits and Pieces, Ginagmayog Dinagko. I'm Yvonne, and for this episode, I'll be joined by an expert actually of this kind of discussion. And this discussion of us will be focusing on the idea of breathe and carry on. So let's discover and together we are going to learn a lot of things regarding this conversation that we have. And before that, she will be introducing herself as well. So I'll turn the microphone over to you, Monique, to have a short introduction.
Yeah, thanks so much, Yvonne. I am Monique Derwin. I am the Mind Body Coach, and I work specifically with chronic pain, anxiety, things that disrupt in the body, and what to do to change the way that it's feeling so that you can go on with your life.
Mm-hmm. Yep, perfect introduction. Very simple, but this is something that we are going to be discussing about. So, as what I have mentioned with our first meeting, Monique, I'll be having, well, I love try factors. So, I'll be having three major questions. And of course, there are a lot of follow up about that. And then right after, we'll be jumping in since I've also gathered questions coming from those people who also would like to learn and also they are very curious in what are the things that we are going to discuss, and also for those people who are also having questions with their own panic attacks and so was their anxiety. So I was able to gather at least let me check here. I guess I have three for both. Yeah, I actually have, correct. I actually have three questions that are coming from the people who would like to ask regarding this topic as well. So, are we ready to roll on with the questions?
Absolutely. Let's go.
Yep. So first things first, since we're going to talk about panic attack and anxiety in this episode, I would like to ask these questions for you so that people will be enlightened on what is it all about. So I'd like to ask, what is the definition of a panic attack for you? What are its causes? What are its triggers? And let's say, for example, I am this kind of person who happens to have a panic attack like few years back, let's say 4 to 5 years, would it still be considered that something that I should be treating, or that's just a one-time thing?
Yeah, these are great questions. So, the definition of a panic attack to me is a sudden or an intense episode that is usually brought on by a fear or a distress of some sort.
Yeah.
Um, Ideally, they should only last a few minutes. They should peak out within a few minutes. But
Mm-hmm.
the problem is that we start having more thoughts about them, which in turn creates more feelings about them, which kind of makes it
Mm-hmm.
go on a little bit longer than what they're actually made to happen for.
Mm-hmm.
With, the idea of having a panic attack and then maybe not having another one for several years, this is actually pretty common because there's a difference between a panic attack disorder, which is something that's kind of constant that people struggle with pretty much on a daily basis or a few
Mm.
times a week, or a trigger or a sudden intense episode of fear or discomfort or distress that initiates something. And ideally these triggers are inside of us. There are things that are inside of our body, our nervous system. They were taught through us through childhood, conditioning patterns, things like that throughout our life. And sometimes things look or feel familiar, and these
Mm.
old triggers may be reactivated. So it may not be something that's even
Ah.
really happening in the moment. It might be a
Mm-hmm.
memory or a trigger that's deep in the neurology of the body, in the nervous system. And you turn the corner and there's this thing that looks like or sounds like or smells like or reminds us
Mm.
of, and there's a intense explosion that comes up, or a sensation that's really intense for the body.
Mm.
So there's
That's
a
that's
response.
that's quite interesting. So maybe we can also categorize that there is a frequency or a level if it's a panic attack? Is there something to be considered as a mild, severe, or how should it be?
Yeah. So, people will feel it in all different levels. Some people
Mm.
identify things as being extreme, while other people might identify it as being very simple or
Mhm.
very low.
Mm.
And so
Mhm.
each person's going to feel this a little bit differently depending on their individual life experiences, memories, triggers, traumas. We have to take a lot into consideration to really identify it on that type of a scale. But for the most part, it can be very simple. It could last 30 seconds. It could be
Mm.
a little bit deeper, and maybe it would last 90 seconds to 5 minutes. And then we have some people that will experience it for up to an hour, maybe even
Oh my
kind
god.
of going throughout the day, and maybe even longer. And, as long as the mind is making stories about it, this is
Mhm.
uncomfortable. I don't like this. I wish it would go away, which is common when you're in a discomfort place. You don't want to feel it anymore. So you start thinking about it. But every time you think about it, you actually initiate another emotional response in the body. And so it kind of stays in this momentum, if you will, and keep.
Mm. That's interesting to know that there are experiences that would reach up to an hour, because I've known someone who is actually having this panic attacks, and I've seen this person having it for, as what you mentioned, for minutes. Like probably the longest time that he had this experience was like about 10 minutes. That's what I remembered. It's interesting that there are even an hour for this. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. The more uncomfortable it is and the more your
Mm.
mind makes it mean, the longer it's going to last.
Oh my god, that's pretty scary. Well, you mentioned about triggers, for example, when it comes to having panic attacks. What are the things that you could say as something that are triggers or causes for this one? Would stress be part of it?
Yeah, yeah. Stress would be possibly an initiator, right? So when we feel stress,
Mm,
the
mm,
rest of the body does not have the capacity to do what it's designed to do. Our immune
mm,
system lowers. Just our cognition isn't quite there whenever we're in
mm,
stress. So stress could absolutely have a factor of it, but with a trigger in general, it might look like a fear of an animal or a space. Like some people are afraid to fly.
mm,
Some people are afraid of heights. Some people have discomfort around other people, being in social
mm,
environments. So it's really whenever the environment is there,
mm.
that the person has the trigger with themselves. There's a little discomfort, but the good news is that we can actually trigger train, is what I call it, around some of these things, and start to reverse the way that this comes up in our brain, which reverses the way it is felt in our body. So you can actually go out and do the thing that you're kind of afraid of, or that would normally bring on the stress or the panic, and have
Oh,
a completely different experience if you're ever interested in that type of thing is available.
I see. I see that. That's also something that is an eye opening for me, because the person that I know is having panic attacks usually just do not think about what happens. The person only wanted to really like breathe because he's having a hard time breathing. So that's the reason why I was asking if stress was part of it, as so as some other things, because I usually ask that person because normally I am beside that person if there is a panic attack. I don't know if I'm the reason, probably, but I'm thinking I'm not, because he told me that he just had a hard time breathing. So that's why I asked him questions like, what are you thinking, what happens before it happens, before the panic attack occurs. And he just told me that there are certain things that he was thinking, like really something at work, and then finally he's having a hard time breathing. So I was like, oh, okay, so this is something that is really stressing him out also. So that's one, probably that's one of the triggers. So yeah, I guess that's one thing that the people will be listening and also seeing this one. Those are the things that are very, very helpful. They would know that these are considered as panic attacks, and also for some reasons I was really thinking because I had an experience once, just to share. Way back when I was like probably this one was like 10 years ago or more. I had an episode of panic attack because I was at university that time. I was in school, and as far as I could remember, there are a lot of things that needs to be accomplished. Suddenly I panicked, and I had a really hard time breathing. So that's one thing also that I could remember, because I can relate this one to the second question that I have for you, Monique, because here in Philippines is not very common, especially for Asian culture. I'm not saying this in general, but normally for Asian culture, if you seek help, really, for example, this is something as a sign of a weakness for them. So I remember when I had an experience when I had panic attack episode when I was in college. When I went to the hospital, the doctor, well, I'm not saying this is something general, okay? So the doctor just told me that I need to drink on my problems, and I was so shocked because I said, so there's no diagnosis of what happens to me. There's no medication, or what can you say to what happens to me? And this surprises me a lot because here it's not very common. It's not very open that the person are telling me that I have panic attack, I have anxiety. Though I have friends, but most of my friends are really coming from other countries who've been very open to me, because one, they have an access of medication for this. Also, there are a lot of therapy doctors and sessions that are willing to help them in regards to this one. I just would like to ask, what do you think are the reasons why there are still countries, especially here? I've experienced it firsthand. In my country, there is not very open regarding the idea, and also the help that we can get when it comes to panic attacks and anxiety. And what do you think? Also, because we're dealing about this, could you give us what are the things or the advices that you were able to see as very helpful with regards to those people that are having panic attacks and also anxiety?
Yeah, this is a great question because I find that this is common in a lot of cultures,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of countries. And
Mm-hmm.
some countries and cultures are very open to the idea of mental health. They're very
Mm.
advocates for it. They speak about it. They want people to get the support, but a lot of areas aren't. And there's reasons
Yeah.
behind that I've seen. It's kind of like the stigma behind it. Like we're not
Mm.
supposed to talk about this. I
Yes, yes.
heard it's not even a real problem. It's in your mind. Things
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
there's a lot of judgment about
Mm.
mental health and stability and anxiety, panic attacks, things like that. There's fear of how we're going to be accepted if we talk about this openly with people, if we share our truth and get vulnerable. But I think a lot of it, honestly, is lack of awareness.
Mm.
Awareness and lack of resources is what I found in a lot of spaces, that they just don't understand the symptoms. There's a misunderstanding of the symptoms. There's a misunderstanding of the information. If you were to say, let's hypothetically say you have a panic attack and you go into the hospital and you think it's really a heart attack or something because
Yeah, yeah, that's what I was thinking.
you can't breathe. There's all this
Mm.
pressure. Everything's kind of distorted. So there's
Mm.
fear that something might be actually wrong with my body. So we go in to get help. And then the person's like, yeah, it's just a panic attack. As
Mm.
if just a panic attack is not
Mm.
a thing. And I mean, the good news is it's not life threatening. Yay. But in the moment, the person can't really identify that. And when you're told something like that by an authority, it's kind of
Mm.
embarrassing. It's kind of like, oh man, I just came in here hoping to get help and it was this. And we often hear, stop stressing. You just got to stop
Mm.
stressing. That's the way out. But I went into the hospital before in my life with panic attacks, and no one told me how to not stress. So
Mm.
that is one of the main things that I work with my clients and that I teach the public in general. Um, because the first thing we have to do is get out of our mind, out of the intrusive thoughts, out of the spinning and the fast pace of what the brain is doing, and get
Mm.
into the body. And not a lot of people really understand what that means. We might have heard it before. We might hear things like get present or get in your body or get out of your head or things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's an actual action step. It's not just a thought like, okay, I'm going to get out of my head. You have to do things to kind of anchor into the body and ground back down and to be able to separate all the chatter, all the fear, all the stories that the brain is telling you from the physical body.
That's quite fascinating because yeah, as what I've mentioned, it's quite a sad experience, most especially here. Here in Philippines, I'm not very certain if there are mind and body coach here that are present who's willing to help with matters like this. I had few friends of mine and also myself. I'm very open when it comes to talking about mental health and so on, especially not just because it's mental health month, but because I wanted to help myself and to help other people as well, to educate them of what's happening. But unfortunately, as what I have mentioned, it's not very much of a great access here in Philippines. Plus, people are not very much educated about it. So if they experience this kind of thing, mostly, as what I've said, doctors are just, I mean, I have nothing against them. I go to the hospital if there are needed to be done. I have checkups in the hospital, but normally I was just fascinated with what he was telling me. The doctor was telling me to just drink on my problems. I was like, so what happens to me? I don't know what happens to me because I was telling them to check on my heart rate, to check on everything, but that's what I got. So I told myself I needed to see someone and also to talk to someone who's an expert in this matter. And good thing I have you, especially now, Monique, that could help me, not just me, but also people who will be having this episode as well, and also that they can help out others who are also having this experience. So I that's one thing that I'm hoping for this episode. And I guess also let's deal in with what you mentioned, how to be present when it comes to especially if there are triggers and causes that would have you into a panic attack mode or anxiety. So would normally be like really going on a nature tripping, or probably like being with people who love you or those people who supported you. Was that one of the examples as well, as you could say that uh, getting yourself into something that is present?
Yeah. So, it really depends on what you have access to in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
If you're outside and you have access to move the physical body and to walk around,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely do that. But if you're in a car with somebody, or you're in the grocery store,
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah.
you got 5 kids running around the house with you, right? We don't always have access to just check out
Yes,
and take
yes.
care of ourselves. So I love that we're talking about breathing in this, because I think that's a huge thing. When you can connect with your breath, you can start to slow down what, again, the mind chatter, the disruption that's happening, if you will.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So it might look like taking a breath in through the nostril. And I like to see color. I like to visualize things because it makes it a little bit easier for my brain to kind of grab it instead of all the
Uh-huh.
data going on.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I will tell my clients to maybe put their hand on their belly or their heart and first connect with their physical body, whether it's rubbing their
Mm.
hands
Mm-hmm,
together,
mm-hmm.
whether it's doing something to feel that you're in a body first off, because a lot of times we will disassociate. So we kind of
Yeah, yeah,
out
yeah.
of our body and we're kind of over here and we're looking at all the things here. And so it's really anchoring back in. So maybe just a point of contact. Put your hand on your heart, put your hand on your belly, feel your heartbeat, feel your breath go in and out from your belly as you're moving. And then I would even say, if you have a moment to close your eyes, close your eyes. Because when we shut off all the distractions, we have to go inside.
Mm-hmm.
And the eyes are kind of the number one thing, the number one sense that takes everything in, right? So if we're distracted,
Mm.
what's going on here? Now, again, if you're driving a car, you got kids, or you're in a swimming pool, you don't want to close your eyes. Like,
Yeah.
take it very seriously for your health and well-being wherever you are. But if you're sitting and you have a moment and you can close your eyes, and then if you can, picture a light coming in through the nostrils. I like to picture white because it just feels clean to me. a
Mm, mhm,
bright white light, and I picture it almost like a neon, right? Like those neon lights that are really vibrant, really bright. You see them all over town. And kind of picture the color coming in through the nose, the white, going down through the throat, and maybe go all the way down to the belly. And as you exhale out, maybe you make a noise or a sound or a sigh. And some people choke, some people cough,
mm,
some
mhm,
people make noises. Some people don't do anything, but just give yourself permission to play with it for a minute. So it would just kind of look like touching the heart, touching the belly,
mhm,
closing the eyes, and maybe just doing that 2 or 3 times consistently. And just that is enough to get into your body and get present for just a moment. And if that was helpful and you can stay there for longer, ideally 90 seconds is
mhm,
the golden number. If you can tap in for 90 seconds, you can ideally change the way that the brain is processing information. It only takes 90 seconds. But
mm,
usually at about 3 to 5 seconds, our brain fires another fear, another warning signal, and another trigger, right? So it's being able to stay in the practice for a few moments
mhm,
and see if you can bring all that anxiety down. And then, okay, what's the next step? And it might be 30 seconds, it might be a minute, it might be 5 minutes, something might happen again. Well, that's
mhm.
an opportunity to come right back.
Pretty interesting because when you told me about the breathing technique, I also followed through, and
Mhm.
I feel like there is something of a relief that I feel after that. So that's a very good thing. Well, actually, just to share as well, I have a liberty to share this one since my husband and I were living for 5 years in one house already, and he had an episode when we actually this is a sad story because we had COVID inside, like the entire family excluding my little one, which is pretty much a miracle for me because all of us, my mother-in-law, my son's my father's, I'm sorry, my husband's aunt, and then the person who helps us in the house were also having COVID. So we were stuck inside the house, even his uncle. So we're together, all of us, like I think five of us were having COVID, except my son. And he had his panic attack because we were actually like, I think COVID also is one thing that is scaring everyone, especially, and a lot of things come out. So when I talk to my husband, what happens? Like a simple conversation, he panicked. So I was really, really shocked because he had a hard time breathing. The only thing I told him is to just breathe. And I don't know the technique. So I hold his hand and I told him to really breathe slower and feel like no one is really running after him because when I had an experience with him in which he's having like really heavy breathing like this one, and I was really scared because I told him we have to go to the hospital, we have to check your heart and all those things. And then all of a sudden I asked him if he's feeling like this, if he's feeling like that, and he told me like, again, this, I think this is one of my panic attack episodes. So I actually the moment that you told about the breathing technique and styles, I think this is something of a relief that not just myself, I can also teach other people to do this. It's very simple, but it's helpful because I find a relief when I was following through with that, with your instructions. Probably it's also your voice, Monique, that is also soothing when you say it. I was just all of a sudden I close my eyes and follow through with what you were saying.
Yeah. It's really a simple procedure, and
Mm,
I say practice it multiple times a day, even if you're not in distress, even if you're not in panic,
mm,
because once the body gets used to doing something, it kind of does it naturally.
mm,
So when I, have anxiety or feel panic or stress, my hand automatically kind of goes up and just starts tapping. And I don't know if you're familiar with EFT or
yeah, yeah.
right, but it's something that I learned years ago, and it's right in the collarbone or in the sternum of my heart. And I do it unconsciously now. It's just like oh, this is uncomfortable. And I come right here and I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember this. And then
Mm,
it's like the brain brings the trauma down, the trigger down. It
mm,
calms, whatever's going on. But it takes a practice. It's a while to, master these types of things. And my clients will say the same thing. They say, I actually hear your voice telling me what to do,
Yeah.
even though it's my words, because they're used to the way I talk to them. And as someone who was hospitalized with chronic fatigue, anxiety, so many different mental situations in my life,
Mm-hmm.
I really understand how hard it is to change something in the moment. So if we can make it really simple and just give the listeners something that's, 5 seconds, 10 seconds to,
Mm.
and they can just implement that, it's going to shift something in them, and the more you practice it, the better you're going to be at it. So that's one of the easiest things that I teach people. That's one of the first things that I make sure everybody understands really well.
Yeah, I guess also another thing that I pick up from you, Monique, is that this is something that you should be recognizing. It's not something that you just shrug, I'm just having this episode and things like that, and I'm okay. So when you recognize that this is one of your triggers and causes for your panic attack, you realize on what are the steps and the things that can bring down the things that you're thinking. That's a very good thing. Wow, I've also learned it a lot from this one. Oh my god, this is perfect. So I guess I'll just jump onto the last question that I have, which are one of the major questions, and then let's jump on with the questions that I have for the people that I am having this poll about this episode that we have. So, yep, the last question that I have, Monique, is that since it has been mentioned that this is not life threatening and all, what is the most or the worst thing that you've had with a client having an episode of panic attack or probably an anxiety?
Yeah. So, again, everybody's a little different. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily like to call things good or bad, worse or
Mm-hmm.
lighter,
Mm-hmm.
anything like that, because everyone's in their own experience. And to that person in the moment, it is very real. Their body is feeling it, their mind is thinking about it. It's creating a discomfort in them. And
Mm-hmm.
so whatever they're experiencing is very real. So I would like to just say, again, reiterate, it's not life threatening. You won't die. It is very uncomfortable,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
ideally it should only last around 90 seconds. If you can implement a practice that's like, hold on, brain, don't
Mm-hmm.
run away from me, don't take off, don't leave me here like this. If you can start to again pull that part of yourself back inside through that simple breath exercise, through a touching of the body somewhere, um,
Mm-hmm.
through a grounding of some sort, it's going to dissipate. It's going to.
Mm-hmm.
It's only the thoughts about the feeling that will continue to create it going, continue to keep it going, continue to
Mm-hmm.
move the cycle, or keep going back to the thing that is the trigger. So understanding what the trigger is, if you have access to understanding what your trigger is, I think that's a huge help. But even if you don't, you know that when you feel this way, there's a different thing that you can do.
All right. So yeah, we actually had our three major questions being answered, Monique, and I'll go over with the three questions that I've also got from the people who are having their questions, and also they would like to ask something about this episode that we have regarding their panic attacks as well as their anxiety. So I have three questions in here. So actually, I guess the first one, mostly this one were already being answered by you. It has been discussed, but we can run through with these questions that I've had. So the first one I have is that this is coming from a person who's close, who's also close to me, and she's already having a conversation with a therapist as well. But she mentioned if this question is one thing that she would like to ask, if how she can handle panic attack and as well as anxiety if she is alone.
Yeah, that's a great question. So again, I would practice, kind of what we talked about and ran through just
Mm-hmm.
for a few moments, was just the taking a breath, getting in touch with your body, And if you feel unsafe, if you feel out of control, I would suggest getting to the floor. Get down to like the
Mm,
lowest space where you can sit on the ground, where you're not gonna, fall over or
mm,
lose your balance or anything like that. Because sometimes that happens when the anxiety is high, the head starts to get a little foggy. And I know
mm,
myself, I've had episodes where I actually passed out. So I would suggest, if that is a fear or a concern, make sure you're safe. So get
mm,
somewhere safe, and again, just make some contact. Touch your face, touch your heart, touch your belly, take a breath, and maybe just repeat a mantra to yourself, something that
mm,
feels true or safe for you. It could just be, I'm safe to breathe. Something
mm,
like that, just to remind your brain, like, hold on, brain, 1 second. We're going to
mm.
get back in the body. We're going to realign and connect. And when mind and body and soul are in that aligned space, there is wholeness and life is a little bit easier. So that's just a rule of thumb for me.
Mm, mm-hmm. Thank you, thank you. So, we'll move on with the second question. So, the second question that I gather is that how are you going to avoid triggers or panic attacks? Let's say the trigger is a person. Would you suggest that you're going to avoid having conversation or contact with this person, or what can you say about this?
Yeah. Again, I think every situation's a little bit different. And to really answer that honestly, I would want to do an evaluation or a consultation with the person that's asking this question to really understand what their situation is. If
Mm-hmm.
it's something that's not safe,
Mm-hmm.
we definitely would approach that in a different way. But if it's like your little brother who broke your toys when you were a kid, and when you see him, you still get a little annoyed, or the employer that you don't really get along with, or things like that, and it's not an unsafe situation. I would say we don't really have to avoid. I think that that's kind of sweeping things under the rug that are going to come back later.
Mm-hmm.
Triggers inside of us. So I would address inside of me, why is this a problem for me? You know,
Mm-hmm.
that they're doing, that I'm witnessing, that I have an opinion about or a judgment about, that is actually causing my body distress. Because every
Mm-hmm.
time we think a thought, we feel a feeling. So if I think they shouldn't be doing that, or they should do something different, or I don't like fill in the blank, then my body emotes an emotional response, which in turn makes me have a reaction. So
Mm-hmm.
I could, refocus on something, change the thoughts about what I'm dealing with, but I could really get to the core of why this person is a problem for me. And
Mm-hmm.
making them mean to me, that my body is feeling.
That's pretty nice. So, I guess I'll jump on with our last question that I have here, Monique. So, the last question is I had, why would you believe on panic attacks and anxiety when it's just a phase or a part of life?
Yeah. Because again, everything that we feel, it seems very real.
Mm,
So if you feel excited, you're going to go out and have a good day. If
yeah.
you feel depressed or sad, you're going to maybe struggle a little bit more than what you would on other days. So, however we feel ideally creates our experience for the day. So, when we're feeling a panic attack or an anxiousness, and we can't do the things that we want to do because this sensation is so uncomfortable inside of us, it is very real and it does disrupt our entire day. So, it does need some attention, it does need
Mm,
some understanding, and it does need to be retrained with the brain in order to do it differently, or at least be able to access the tools to where over time you can eventually change the way that you're feeling this information. There's a few different ways to plug this in. We could work on the neuroplasticity of the brain, we could work
mm,
on the triggers, or we could work on the reactive state that we have. So there's a few different ways to change it if it's a problem, but otherwise, just to notice, oh, my mind thinks thoughts, my body feels feelings. This is the reaction of that. Interesting. What do I want to do now?
mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. I've also actually stressed this one out with the last question that I have because it has. I mean, I understand where this person is coming from because it has been stressed out that this is life threatening, but I guess if this is one thing that is giving us discomfort on a daily basis, also, this is one thing that we should be seeking help and assistance, regardless of if you are already like, I'm making this one as part of my life. This is just phase of my life. Well, if this is giving you discomfort, then why would you be wanting this one as part of your life? So that's also one thing that I'm thinking when I receive this question. But I get the person's I where the person is coming from with this question, but I'm also thinking that if this is giving you a discomfort, then this is something that you should be asking an expert to help you out regarding this matter. And good thing that you have a lot of things to share about this kind of attacks, the panic attacks as well as the anxiety, Monique. So probably this is also very helpful and important to those people that are also having this one. This is just very simple. Like also telling other people, that's just nothing. Like they don't really feel that this is something that they should be talking about. So I guess this is the moment and this is the time that they should be realizing that yeah, this is one thing that we are going to be talking about. And if you don't want this to be part of your life that is giving you discomfort, then this is the right person that you should be talking. Monique is the right person that you should be topping with this kind of conversation. So I'm very thankful that we have you, Monique. So, yes, I was able to gather all those things that we are going to be discussing in this episode. But the last portion of this podcast is that we will be having this conversation on the things. Oh, I call it as a fast talk for the guests that I've had. Like, I'm just throwing out statements or ideas regarding this conversation, regarding the topic, and it's up to you to decide if you agree or disagree, and then you provide me your 1 to 2 minutes reason why you agree or disagree on this kind of let's say I get this stereotype from the internet. This is mostly stereotype, misconceptions or ideas about panic attack and anxiety. Are you ready?
Sure.
This is not really something that is very shocking, but yeah, let's just go through with this one. The first one is that stereotype people with low self-esteem are the ones having panic attacks. Would you agree on this one?
I would not agree or disagree with that.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly because it's not an esteem thing that creates panic attacks. It's a sensation in
Mm-hmm.
the body that creates these attacks. So the attacks are based off of thoughts, and the thoughts could be about anything. Like I said, I'm scared to get on a plane. I don't want to travel to that country. I don't want to get on stage or go in public. I don't know that that's necessarily an esteem thing as much as it is a just a thought that's creating a sensation.
Wow, wow. I guess that's also one thing for me. I also would disagree. For me, I would disagree on this one. This is not associated really when it comes to self-esteem. So I guess let's move on. Let's jump on to the second one. So people with panic attacks will be medicated for the rest of their life. Would you believe and or agree on this one?
I completely disagree with that. I was on medication for many years and it had its place. It was very helpful. I'm grateful for that. But I'm off of medication. I've had situations since then and I've been able to overcome them as well as hundreds of people that I've worked with at this point. So
Oh,
I
wow.
believe there's a place for the medicine. And if you need it, by all means, take care of yourself. I'm not against that.
Mm,
But I don't believe it's something that you don't have to have medication if you have panic attacks because there's a lot of people that have panic attacks undiagnosed and have never had medicine.
That's true. That's true. That's what I've said. Here in our country, it's not just much of an access when it comes to those medications, and also I'm not very certain if we have mind and body coach here in our country. I'm not so sure. So that's why I was like, wow, this is the first time I'll be talking about this. And I have an expert, a mind and body coach. And here in Philippines, what's very common is your fitness coach, your fitness guru. And we don't have mind and body coach. So this is an eye opener really for the people, especially here in Philippines that are I know a lot of people, like really, on a personal note, I have friends, My husband is having panic attack. I myself had an experience once, but mostly it's not something that we really are talking about. And so when I had this opportunity with you, I'm really very excited, especially myself and also to the people that I know that are having experiences and are having panic attacks. They reached out to me right away when I posted that I would like to know if they have questions and all those things. They posted when I posted it, they reached out to me right away and they throw questions to me. And I'm like, okay, hold on. I just have to filter your questions. And I'm like, I can't answer this one. I'm not the expert. I will be talking to an expert. So don't you worry. I'll be able to reach out your questions and I will get back with you with the questions that I've had. So this is really something that I am very excited that other people will be able to listen. And also, I hopefully they can share and be open with everything. I know a lot of people that are really very much having this discomfort comfort when it comes to panic attacks, but they're not very open about it. They'll just say, this is just something that I feel, and tomorrow it will not come back, or on the other day it will not come back. And some people will be like, he's just having a stage fright.
Yeah.
This person is just having like this.
Well, even that, what we have to realize are these small moments where the body is stressed out are actually what creates illness and disease in the long term. So, if we did this one time in 30 years, it wouldn't really be a problem. But that
Mm,
with constant kind of everyday stress, the life cycle, what we're doing, and then the body has to, do things on its own. It has to produce saliva and tears and bladder and digest food and all of these things that it's doing automatically. And then we throw in these little bouts of stress. And
mm,
over time, you can imagine them just kind of stacking up and layering and layering and layering. And
mm,
then there's a problem, you know?
mm,
So that's where the illness and dis-ease, DIS dash ease, lack of ease in the physical body manifests some sickness. And so we really want to pay attention to these things whenever we feel that panic or that stress or that anxiety. And again, really give it whatever it's needing so that it doesn't get pushed down and then pop back up later on, just kind of unconsciously. Because the
mm.
more that happens, the more it happens. It kind of becomes the cycle,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I guess I would agree on that one, Monique. Especially when I was in university, I don't really share or probably I wasn't on my happiest moment because I don't like going to school. Not just I'm being forced, but I don't like when I was in school. I was so shocked. I remember, I guess this is around like second year of my university, and I told myself I don't like doing assignments, I don't like doing the stuffs, and it layers down because I don't want to talk it to my friends, I don't want to talk it to my parents. It layers down, and finally I exploded. So that's the reason why I had an episode of panic attack when I was still studying. So I guess that's really one thing that you mentioned, that it's not something that you can just shrug because it layers and it layers, and finally it comes into you and you did not notice it, and that's the moment that you realize that this is something that is discomfort to you, which can really be treated.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess I'll just jump on with the last one that I have had. Change in lifestyle can cure anxiety disorder. Would you agree on this one?
Again, it's kind of one of those questions that you have to understand, like, what is their definition of changing a lifestyle?
Mm,
Is it that I take vacation, and that's not going to change anxiety or panic attacks, right? But
mm,
if you can change the way that the brain is processing the information, then yes, you can change that. And I would consider changing the brain a lifestyle change in the work that I do now. But 20 years ago, I wouldn't have considered that a lifestyle change. So I think this is really subjective, some of these questions. It's
mm,
how we take it in. But, if you were able to implement a daily practice of
mm,
movement, yoga, breath work, things like that, and get into a new pattern, and you consider that a lifestyle change, then yes, I would say that it would contribute to changing the way that you're processing, information in the body.
mm. Yeah, I guess I would also be in your favor when it comes to this one, because it doesn't say that lifestyle change. Let's say, for example, what triggers a panic attack for you is your work. Let's say, for example, so lifestyle change for you is that you should be quit work. You should quit working. So that's not a thing. So we have to define you. We have to define first what is a change in your lifestyle. As what you mentioned, if there are things that would help you like calm down, you have breathing exercises, you've enrolled in yoga classes, and also you have your probably fitness coaches as well would also help out when it comes to like breathing, how you handle your breathing, but not the same way as you taught me. Like this moment, it's a different thing. My coach would like just told me when I had like my coach when I was doing my fitness coach. He was just telling me this to sit down and breathe in and out. I was like, oh, okay. So it's a very different thing. We all have different experiences, but as what you mentioned, I'm also in favor of what you've said, that it's a different thing for all of us when it comes to changing your lifestyle. It's just not just it it's not just an overnight thing. So if you wanted to change something, probably you should start considering or recognizing within yourself what are the things you would want to change and what are the things that you wanted to do. So, yep, I guess also with this one, I would categorically agree or disagree on this matter as long as we define what is a lifestyle change. So, I guess that's everything for me. Monique, I am very thankful. I'm glad that you were able to grace this moment with my invite, most especially. And I am very much, very, 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 very open that a lot of people will be like, I'm not sure. Some will just be secretly listening when this episode will be uploaded. I'm okay with that as long as this one would be able to reach out to you, especially to those people that are really looking for answers or for help when it comes to panic attacks. And I'm not saying that this is just in Philippines, but for some people, especially for the areas that are really in the countryside or the province areas here in Philippines, which is not having an easy access when it comes to resources, when it when it comes to medication. So I hope they will be able to listen to this one. YouTube and Facebook is really very much of an access for them. So I hope when this episode will be launched, they will be able to sit down, and sit with some of their members and able to share this also with everyone else. Because for me, just this moment that we were talking, this is very helpful already. So I guess that's everything for me. Monique, do you have anything to plug? Do you have your shows, your website in which people can visit?
Yeah, absolutely. I've attached some information with you for my social media,
Mm.
and you can put that in the show notes or whatever you want to attach that to. I also have a few things coming up that are pretty amazing. We have a wellness week that's happening in June. It's going to be complimentary, it's open to the public. So if anybody would
Mm.
like to join that, it's 5 days, and we're going to hit a lot of topics, everything from Ayurvedic living to relationships, mind body connection, mindset. So it'll really help with a lot of the triggers that are
Mm.
initiating attacks for people and anxiety. So I invite everybody to that. If you want that information, you can absolutely grab it from me. We also have a public Facebook group. You're welcome to come in and join us. And I think I attached a freebie, and all that information is in there with the
Yeah.
freebie. So along with a guided meditation of me walking you through. So if you want to discuss further, you're welcome to turn that evaluation in and connect with me, and we can always talk about some next steps for you. But don't give up on yourself. It's a
Mm.
long journey, and it's very scary to do this alone. So find a support system, find a community that takes steps, not just talks about it. And I
Mm.
invite anybody that wants to learn more about that to reach out to me, connect with me, and I'm happy to give you some information.
And also, let me just add this one. Even for Asian countries, Monique is very open with her time zones. Though we had challenges when we had our first conversation with the schedule, but she's very good with it. She has clients that are coming from Asian countries. So I'm hoping that once this episode will be uploaded, you will be able to visit her page. And do not worry, she's very, very good with this one. I assure you.
Yes, yeah, not a problem. I have clients all over the world and have for years. And so we make it work. If you want to talk, if you want to get some information or just know what the
Mm,
next steps are, I have tons of things I can offer people. So reach out, connect with me on social media, and let's get you some support if you need it.
yay. So, hold on. So I guess that's everything. And again, Monique, I'm very, very thankful that you were able to be present with this episode. And I have a very good resource person who is an expert when it comes to this matter of conversation. So again, for everyone who will be able to watch this and who's listening, just breathe and carry on.
Yes.
I hope you guys learned from what we were talking about in this episode and be able to share this to anyone who's been suffering panic attacks and anxiety in silence. This is of great help for me, and I know it is to you too. This has been Bits and Pieces, Ginagmay og Dinago. Please make sure to subscribe the channel and follow me on all my social media platforms.